Hello, I'm Philip Brunelle, Artistic Director and founder of VocalEssence and organist choirmaster at Plymouth Congregational Church in Minneapolis. I want to do a series of snapshots today. 8 composers that have had a role to play with VocalEssence or Plymouth Church, and just a little look at some of the marvelous music that they have created. Starting with Johann Pachelbel. Pachelbel, 1653 to 1706, German composer, organist, teacher, was in Nuremberg for many, many years. You may know him best for that canon in D that he wrote for 3 violins, which gets heard probably more than it should, and was made famous in 1980 when it became part of the movie Ordinary People. He wrote more than 100 fugues, he wrote toccatas, he wrote preludes, and I love the fact that sometimes when people hear his name, I know this is a fact, that in one wedding that there was a call for the program that was being printed, and the person said, yes, we'll be doing the Pachelbel canon, and it came out in the bulletin, honest, as T-A-C-O-B-E-L-L, Taco Bell canon. Unfortunate, but there it is. So Pachelbel, a wonderful composer, and one of the things he loved to do was to have 3 of the voices do a sort of fugal writing while the sopranos sang a chorale melody. So the sopranos in this piece that we have here, On God and Not on Human Trust, they sing the melody. And around that, alto, tenor, and bass go. Music of Pachelbel. Our second composer, John Knowles Payne, P-A-I-N-E, born in 1839, died in 1906, American composer and organist, the first person in the USA to be a music professor at Harvard, where he was also the university organist and choirmaster. He was also the first person to be a guest conductor of the Boston Symphony Orchestra. And he wrote the first oratorio here called St. Peter. He also wrote a beautiful Mass in D. And here's the opening part of the Dona Nobis Pacem from that Mass. music of John Knowles Payne. Our third composer is the Swedish composer Moses Pergament, born in 1893, died in 1977. He was both Finnish and Swedish in background, a composer and also a very noted music critic. He wrote choral music that used Yiddish poetry. He also did a violin sonata and string quartet, and he wrote a wonderful dramatic work called The Jewish Song. Now, I'm not able to play much of it for you because you really need sort of piano four hands, but we did perform this work at Orchestra Hall, and it was a stunning, wonderful, big work. The beginning of the second part of it for the tenor solo that talks about being oppressed and weary, slowly moving on. Our fathers passed in silence to an early grave. And you get these big chords. It was a huge orchestra. Music of Moses Pergament. So now our fourth composer, the American Anthony Piccolo, not only a composer, but a wonderful pianist. For 20 years was the assistant chorus master at the New York City Opera, and also has been the children's chorus director at the Metropolitan Opera. Has composed a number of choral pieces, and the one of his that I first came in touch with was a piece called I Look from Afar, a piece for Advent. And here's the opening of that beautiful anthem. And then the soprano solo comes in. Music of Anthony Piccolo. Our fifth composer, the only composer that I know of from Liechtenstein, Joseph Reinberger, born in 1839, died in 1901. He was the professor of composition and piano at the Munich Conservatory. He wrote 12 masses, operas, symphonies, organ sonatas, many organ sonatas, and some beautiful music for choir. I'm going to play the beginning of this piece from Psalm 83. It is a piece that he wrote for harp and organ and treble voices. Beautiful, wonderful writing. Here's the harp. Music of Joseph Reinberger. Now, for number 6, we move to France, and one of those wonderfully long French names, Jean-Jules Aimable Roger Ducasse. We just know him as Roger Ducasse, which is a hyphenated name, born in 1873, died in 1954. He was a composer and an arranger, professor of composition and orchestration at the Paris Conservatoire, wrote choral music, piano, operas, and solo voice. And a piece of his that I've always been very fond of, composed in 1911, which feels very much like in the time of Debussy, was one of his 3 motets, this one called Crux Fidelis. And then solo soprano joins the organ. And the choir. And then at the very end, after this beautiful text, it suddenly changes key and goes from here to this. Music of Roger Ducasse. Our 7th composer, Alessandro Scarati, born in 1660, died in 1725, Italian composer, father of other composers, Domenico and Pietro Scarlatti. And this particular Scarlatti was really the link between the Baroque and classical periods. He wrote operas. He wrote 500 chamber cantatas for solo voice. He wrote masses. And when you think about a mass, so often the opening Kyrie is very brooding and in minor keys, but not with Scarlatti. His Saint Cecilia Mass, very positive, Lord, have mercy. You get the feeling. It's a very brilliant Kyrie from Scarlatti. And then our 8th and final composer today, the German composer Georg Schumann. Born in 1866, died in 1952. Composer, conductor, violinist, pianist, conducted for many years the Berlin Singakademie, for 50 years actually, wrote orchestral music, choral, chamber music, and one of the pieces of his that I love is an a cappella choral piece, words from the 23rd Psalm, "Yea, though I wander through the valley of death." Music of Georg Schumann. I hope you've enjoyed our little snapshot of 8 composers. Have a wonderful day.